Randall smiled at the still form curled up in the back seat. It had been so long since he'd gotten to spend time with his daughter. Now, just seeing the peaceful look on her face, it was hard to keep his eyes on the road. If all you saw was the innocent serenity on the girl's face, you wouldn't even know anything was wrong with the world. And at this moment, at least for Randall, nothing was. But for all the other moments, the opposite was true. Randall's ex-wife swore he'd never see Katie again. She was trying to take everything he had, and was even accusing him of doing terrible, unspeakable things so that he wouldn't have visitation rights. Before any of that could be finalized through the courts, he was taking Katie on one last trip, and there was nothing she could do to stop him. As his thoughts splintered to his ex-wife, all the years they'd spent together, the fights, the cheating, the lying. He found his knuckles turning white as he squeezed the steering wheel.
That fucking bitch.
Exhaling, Randall tried to clear the thoughts and memories from his head. No sense in dwelling on it now. There was plenty of time for that later. This was about him and his daughter, he thought once again, glancing at her peacefully curled up in the back seat. He could taste the salt in the air now, though he couldn't see the ocean through the tall trees. It was evident they were getting close. The GPS said just 5 more miles, a little Airbnb right on the coast, secluded with a private beach, the perfect weekend. Katie had always loved the ocean, and on top of that, there was supposedly a huge Halloween celebration not far away. The air suddenly picked up a rotten tinge that made Randall wrinkle his nose in disgust and nearly gag. But just as soon as it had come, it passed, occasionally returning to sicken him briefly. 2.5 miles to go before all his plans fell apart. The GPS showed only one road, but slowing to a stop, Randall could see that road was covered by large rocks, as if there had just been a rock slide. It didn't appear as though there was any collapsed earth on the tree-covered mountain next to the blocked road. Looking over the scene, he noticed a fork in the road directly to the left of the blocked area. The forked road was dirt, however, and seemed fresh, or at least dusty, which was another oddity, as everything else in the area was wet from recent rainfall. Then he noticed a figure waving him down the road. It was tall, with ridiculously skinny legs, and seemed to be wearing a gas mask, from under which blazed red, glowing eyes. For a moment, he just stared in bewilderment, as seconds ago, he'd neither seen a dirt road nor the strange man. Without any recourse other than to turn back, he shrugged it off as being tired from the long drive, assuming even the city workers take Halloween seriously around here.
No way ahead but forward,
Randall thought as he pointed his car down the dirt path and drove past the odd gas mask guy, who stood completely still, just pointing down the road and staring at him. After a 1/4 mile, his phone entirely lost service, and the GPS stopped updating or giving instructions. All that greeted him on the screen of his device was a message indicating there was no connection.
Piece of shit,
he muttered, throwing the phone into the passenger seat. Eventually, the dirt road led to a concrete tunnel. He found it odd that a tunnel would be built here where the road hadn't even been paved. As he slowly pulled his car into the tunnel, the smell of rot became even stronger. It was unlike anything he'd ever smelled before. Randall pulled his shirt over his nose, just barely holding back vomit.
Oh.
The stench was enough to wake the dead, but apparently not Katie. He thought, looking back at her, as he so often did. A red-eyed glow from a gas-masked form came into view as it waved Randall through the tunnel. Everything just seemed so off. But all he wanted to do right now was get to their destination. Then it would all be okay. The second his car emerged from the other side of the tunnel, Randall knew without a doubt something was wrong. While previously it had been midday, it was now dusk. The sun, creeping below the horizon, cast a haunting orangish glow over the trees, all of them leafless. A glance in his rear-view mirror showed an endless forest of the same. Randall's heart dropped as he snapped his head back to check with his own eyes. The tunnel he had just passed through was nowhere to be seen. Not only was there not a concrete tunnel, but there wasn't even a dirt road. It was as if he'd just appeared there. Randall rubbed his hand over his tired eyes. The sinking feeling in his stomach told him he was losing it, but he had to keep it together.
Just keep driving forward,
he told himself.
Keep it together and keep driving forward.
It wasn't like he had any better options. Before long, Randall's car approached a massive iron gate, probably at least 20 feet high. The gate spiraled in Gothic design and was adorned with 2 terrifying gargoyles. Jack-o'-lanterns were lit, hung, and placed all over the gate and fence in a truly amazing display. All on their own, the gates opened outward, squeaking and protesting while Randall pulled his car in. Wonder and oddity almost having him forget his precarious situation. A stone blockade stopped him from taking the car any further, but he had reached a town. It was incredible, appearing almost medieval, with candles, jack-o'-lanterns, and torches everywhere. Metal cages with skeletons, and even some with bloodied people, adorned metal streetlights that blazed with purple flames. This was the most amazing Halloween display Randall had ever seen.
The amount of actors alone must have cost a fortune,
he thought to himself, gazing at the extravagant displays in every direction. The hustle and bustle of costumed figures crowded the small town. He got out of his car, noting that some of the buildings were even carved right into a cliff face that surrounded half the town. Through all the noise, he was even certain that he could hear the crashes of waves somewhere in the near distance. A bit of excitement overtook him at all the sights and sounds and sweet smells of candy and baked goods. This was exactly the type of thing Katie had always loved. Ever since she was a baby, that old Disney movie, Halloween Town, was one of her favorites. And here was an actual Halloween Town. Something small, dark, and spindly brushed past his legs incredibly fast.
Ah, what the fuck?
He willed himself to turn to see what it was. But as he did so, his body's connection failed him in an odd way. It was as if there were a lag between his brain and body, almost like operating in slow motion. His fading vision tried with little success to focus in on the dark figure. It looked like a ball of soot with a jumble of limbs and a sharp-fanged grin. In the grip of one of those limbs, He caught the glint of a syringe before the world went dark and the ground rushed up to meet him. A jolt of electricity shot through Randall's body, ripping him from unconsciousness.
What the fuck?
No more sleep.
An impossibly deep voice boomed from right next to Randall's head. The voice seemed to bring a frightening amount of presence to his mind. He found himself chained by his arms and legs to a metal table, completely naked, with a leather strap holding down his head and waist.
Hey! What the fuck is this? Let me go! Let me go! Let me go right now!
When I am done, you can go.
Oh, done with what? Why the hell am I here?
You take, I give.
The now semi-visible figure responded. Metal clinks indicated the man was arranging tools of some sort. Though his back was turned, so Randall couldn't be sure. He didn't want to be sure. The iron restraints dug into Randall's skin as he pulled against them as hard as he could, achieving only in tearing his tender flesh.
There is no escape.
The deep voice said.
Why are you doing this to me?
The man turned around to face Randall with a scalpel in his hand. He was tall and slender, wearing a white, blood-stained lab coat and a plague doctor's mask with a long curved beak. One of his eyes was brown and lidless, with a magnifying glass monocle that had a series of different lenses pushed to the side. His other eye was a piercing blue that stared into Randall in a way that searched for lies. Leather straps from the creepy beaked mask pulled tight against the hairless skin of the man's head. Skin that was either severely scarred or looked to be a patchwork.
I am not doing this to you. I am doing this for her.
The man said as he motioned with the scalpel towards the still colorless body of Katie.
What the fuck did you do to her?
Unfortunately, I had to separate the bottom half of her. Too much time has passed. Not all can be saved.
Oh my god! No! Why? Why would you do this?
I did not do this. You did this. Here they call me the Doctor. The procedures I've invented defy life and death. Do you think I do not know you killed your daughter?
I didn't.
Save it!
The doctor roared, pointing his scalpel at the terrified man's face. With a deep exhale, he relaxed, setting the sharp tool back on the table among the other instruments.
You smothered your daughter to death approximately 14 hours ago. The margin of error on that time frame is no more than 30 minutes. Then you drove her body around like nothing happened. Even planned a little getaway. What you really deserve is far worse than what you're going to get.
Confronted with what he had done, Randall seemed to be at a loss for words. He'd planned on killing himself that night to be with his daughter forever. All that he could muster was pathetic sobs and whimpering that fell on deaf ears.
I am going to use your body to host Katie. You will return at least some of the life you stole from her. I'll be honest, this is going to hurt.
The doctor wheeled his cart of tools over to Randall and then adjusted the overhead fluorescent light to shine on his chest. Without another word, the doctor retrieved his scalpel and began to carve a large circle in Randall's chest. He screamed and thrashed, but his body was held secure, and the doctor continued his work unabated. After the bloody circle had been drawn that spanned half of his chest and half of his stomach, the doctor started removing the flesh from inside the circle. Halfway through, Randall passed out. He awoke sometime later to find no respite from the stabbing pain of his half-skinned torso. The doctor stood in the same spot, cleaning and sharpening his instruments.
Oh, good. You're awake. Now we can continue,
he said, while once again retrieving the pair of surgical pliers he had been using to remove Randall's skin.
Please, I'm begging you, just kill me. Just kill me. Put me under, or kill me.
Randall pleaded with terror and agony in his voice.
I'm afraid that simply isn't going to work. Katie needs you alive, and I need you awake. The procedure has a much higher chance of success if your body is saturated with endorphins. Just the way it is, I'm sorry to say.
The doctor's deep voice answered in mock sympathy as he went back to his work, stripping the flesh from the outlined areas. Randall passed out 2 more times before this task was complete.
I must say, you have an impressively low tolerance for pain.
Randall refused to look at his torturer as tears freely flowed from his eyes and his face contorted in the agonizing pain.
Now that the easy part is done, we get to the real work,
he said, picking up the oscillating bone saw. Randall begged and screamed as it whirred to life. But with steady hands, the doctor began cutting and removing ribs from the screaming man's chest.
Please. Stop it! No!
Hardly able to make it through even a single extraction before losing consciousness, this part of the procedure took considerably longer than need be. Randall couldn't think straight by this point of the procedure. The doctor was removing bits of muscle and flesh to expose Randall's beating heart.
This is the delicate part. Try not to move,
the doctor said as he grabbed an artificial cluster of hand-crafted veins and began to connect each one to Randall's beating heart without causing irreparable damage. After the artificial nerves were connected, the doctor grabbed Katie's torso and gently attached her to a harness over the operating table. Randall watched in shock as the doctor attached the other ends of the veins to Katie's still heart, via a path he'd cleared through the inside of her torso.
I'm quite tired of listening to you,
the doctor said as he sewed Randall's mouth shut with a thick thread.
No one needs to hear from you again. I must insist that we take these as well. Can't have you doing anything else you'd regret,
he said, taking the bone saw and slowly separating each of Randall's arms at the shoulder. With his mouth sewn shut, the child killer's screams came muffled and unanswered.
The good news is I can use much of the muscle and veins from your arms in the procedure.
The deep voice came from behind the beaked mask. For the next several hours, he worked connecting capillary and musculature from the man's open torso to the small lifeless one dangling above him.
We're finally done,
the doctor said in an almost cheery tone while looking over his work. Being able to keep Randall alive through something like that was amazing in itself.
Now, before I finish this procedure, I must give you a warning. If you do anything to harm this little girl in any way ever again, I will make what you just experienced seem like a vacation. Not even death can save you from me. What is left of your life will be dedicated to serving her every whim. Nod if we understand each other.
With tears rolling out of his bloodshot eyes, the man who was once Randall nodded.
All right, let's welcome Katie home.
The doctor said, retrieving a syringe from a safe in the corner of the room. It contained a swirling gaseous mix of green and white that looked like rolling storm clouds. With a quick movement, he plunged it into the brainstem of the girl's motionless torso that was now permanently attached to her father. Randall watched in fascinated horror as her body twitched several times before her head snapped back and drew in a deep breath. Every year, those who make it to Murmire and back often recall seeing an armless, lumbering man whose mouth is sewn shut, aimlessly following the orders of a little girl who is sewn to his chest. One thing is certain. Whatever pernicious consciousness inhabits the body of that murdered little girl, it isn't Katie's. Randall Jacobs suffers an unnaturally long and miserable existence.